San Francisco, California. The city is alive, vibrant, changing. The summer of love has passed, but its spirit lingers. The Castro district has become a haven, a sanctuary for the LGBTQ community. Bars line the streets, neon signs glow in the fog. Clubs stay open late into the night. Men gather, socialize, dance, feel safe. After years of hiding, of fear, of persecution, there is freedom here. A sense of possibility, of community, of belonging. But in the shadows of that freedom, in the darkness between the bars and the ocean, someone is watching. Someone is choosing victims. Someone who sketches their faces before he kills them. This is the story of the Doodler, a serial killer who targeted gay men in San Francisco between 1974 and 1975. A man who met his victims in bars, in clubs, in places where they felt safe, accepted. A man who drew their portraits on napkins, on scraps of paper, quick sketches, doodles. A man who charmed them, gained their trust, lured them to isolated areas, and then killed them. At least 6 men died, possibly more. The killer was never caught, never identified. And to this day, nearly 50 years later, the case remains unsolved. The first known victim was Gerald Earl Kavanaugh. He was 49 years old, a businessman, a regular in Castro's scene. His body was found on January 27th, 1974, near Ocean Beach, a stretch of sand along the Pacific coast, west of the city. He had been stabbed multiple times. There were signs of a struggle, defensive wounds on his hands. Police investigated. They canvassed the area. They interviewed people who knew him, but they had no suspects, no clear motive, no witnesses. The case went cold within weeks. 3 months later, another body was found. Joseph Stevens, known to his friends as Jay, was 27 years old, a performer, well-liked in the community. He was discovered on April 27th, 1974, at Spreckles Lake in Golden Gate Park, a quiet area surrounded by trees. He had been stabbed. The method was similar to the first murder. Multiple stab wounds, signs of a fight. Police began to see a connection. 2 men, both found near water, both stabbed, both part of the gay community. But still no suspect, no clear pattern, no witnesses who would come forward that on May 12th, 1974, just 2 weeks later, Klaus Christman, a 31-year-old entertainer, was found dead at Lincoln Park, near the Palace of the Legion of Honor, a museum overlooking the bay. He had been stabbed. The pattern was becoming clear now. 3 men in 3 months, all from the Castro, all killed in public parks or near beaches, all stabbed repeatedly. Police formed a task force. They began interviewing people in the gay community, asking questions, looking for connections, trying to understand who might be targeting these men. That on June 25th, 1974, Frederick Elmerkappen, 32 years old, was found stabbed to death at Ocean Beach, the same area where the first victim, Gerald Kavanaugh, had been discovered. The killer was accelerating, for murders in 6 months. Fear began to spread through the Castro. Men became cautious, wary. They stopped going out alone. They warned each other, be careful, do not trust strangers. But the killings did not stop. That on July 7th, 1974, Harold Goldberg, a 66-year-old man visiting from Sweden, was found dead near Lincoln Park, stabbed, the 5th victim in 7 months. Then, after a 6-month pause, on January 4th, 1975, Warren Andrews, 52 years old, was found at Ocean Beach, stabbed. 6 confirmed victims, all men, ranging in age from 27 to 66, all from the gay community or connected to it, all killed in isolated areas near the water, parks, beaches, all stabbed multiple times. The pattern was undeniable. Police had few leads, little physical evidence, but they had something unusual, something rare in serial killer cases. Witnesses, survivors. 3 men had survived encounters with the killer. They had been attacked, stabbed, but managed to escape, to fight back, to run. They described the attacker, a young black man, in his early 20s, maybe 19 or 20 years old, slim build, around 5'10", well-dressed, stylish, soft-spoken, polite, charming. He approached men in bars, particularly at a club called the Cabaret on Market Street in the Castro. He would strike up conversations, friendly, casual. He would pull out a pen and napkin. He would sketch their portraits. Quick drawings, doodles. He was talented. The sketches were good, recognizable. Men were flattered, charmed. They felt seen, appreciated. They agreed to leave with him, to go somewhere quieter, to talk, to walk. And then, in dark areas, near the beach, in the park, under the cover of night, he would attack. The survivors gave detailed descriptions. They described his voice, his mannerisms, his clothing. Composite sketches were created, drawn by police artists. The sketches showed a young man, handsome, neatly dressed. The image was distributed throughout the Castro, posted in bars, in clubs, handed out on the street. Police interviewed hundreds of people. They followed leads, chased tips, but nothing solid emerged. The killer seemed to vanish after each murder. No fingerprints were found, no physical evidence left behind, just bodies and silence. The gay community was terrified, but many were unwilling to come forward to cooperate with police. In 1974, homosexuality was still heavily stigmatized. Men feared being outed, losing their jobs, facing discrimination, violence. Some victims were closeted. Their families did not know they were gay. Their deaths were reported, but the context, the location, the community was often downplayed, hidden. Witnesses were reluctant to speak to police. They did not trust law enforcement. The relationship between the LGBTQ community and the San Francisco Police Department was tense, strained, marked by years of raids, harassment, abuse. This made the investigation difficult, nearly impossible. Witnesses existed, but they would not talk. One of the survivors was a well-known entertainer, a performer in the Castro. Another was a diplomat, someone with a public profile, international connections. A third was a prominent figure in San Francisco society, respected, influential. All three survived their attacks. All three could identify the killer. All three saw his face, spoke to him, escaped from him, but none of them wanted to testify. They did not want their sexuality made public. They did not want to appear in court, to be questioned, to be exposed, to have their private lives dissected in newspapers, on television. So they remained silent, and the killer remained free. Police believed they knew who the Doodler was. Tips led them to a suspect, a young black man who fit the description perfectly. He was an art student, enrolled at a local college. He was talented, skilled at drawing, at sketching portraits. He frequented the same bars as the victims, the Cabaret, other clubs in the Castro. He had been seen sketching people, drawing on napkins, on scraps of paper. Witnesses identified him, said yes, that is him, that is the man. But without testimony, without someone willing to go on record, to appear in court, to face the suspect, there was no case. The district attorney declined to prosecute. The evidence was circumstantial. The witnesses would not cooperate. The suspect was never arrested, never charged. And the case, though still open, went cold. The murders stopped in 1975. No more bodies were found. No more reports of attacks. The Doodler simply disappeared. Police theorized he had moved, left San Francisco, gone to another city. Or perhaps he had died, been killed, ended up in prison for something else. Or maybe he just stopped killing, lost the urge, the compulsion. Or perhaps he continued, but changed his methods, his location, his victim profile, chose women instead of men, chose a different city. No one knows. Over the decades, the case remained unsolved. Files were stored in boxes, evidence was cataloged, kept in storage, but no new leads emerged. The survivors, those who could identify the killer, never came forward. 2 of them are believed to have died, passed away in the years since. The third, if still alive, has never been located, or has chosen to remain silent, to keep the secret, even now. In recent years, the case has been reopened. Advances in DNA technology offered hope, a chance to finally solve the case. In 2019, the San Francisco Police Department announced they were using investigative genetic genealogy to try to identify the Doodler, the same method that caught the Golden State Killer, that solved the boy in the box case. DNA evidence from the crime scenes was tested, profiles were created, uploaded to genealogy databases. Searches were conducted, family trees were built, but so far, no match has been found. The investigation continues. Detectives are still working the case, but progress is slow, uncertain. The case of the Doodler is unique, not just because it remains unsolved, but because of the context, the circumstances, the choices that were made. The victims were gay men, at a time when being gay was dangerous, not just socially but legally. Homosexuality was classified as a mental illness until 1973. Sodomy laws were still on the books. Men could be arrested, fired, institutionalized. The survivors were unwilling to testify, to expose themselves, to risk their reputations, their careers, their safety, their families. And so the killer walked free. Justice was sacrificed to protect privacy. Lives were weighed against secrets, and the secrets won. The gay community in San Francisco remembers the Doodler. Older men who lived through that time, who were there in the 1970s, recall the fear. The warnings passed from friend to friend, whispered in bars, shared in hushed conversations. Do not go home with strangers. Do not trust a charming man with a sketchbook. Be careful. Watch your back. The fear was real, visceral, and it lingered long after the murders stopped. Because the killer was never caught. Because he could still be out there, living a normal life, unnoticed, unpunished. The Castro has changed since the 1970s. It is safer now, more visible, more accepted. Pride parades fill the streets every June. Rainbow flags hang from windows, from balconies. Marriage equality is the law, but the history remains. The Doodler is part of that history, a shadow from a darker time, a reminder that progress is not linear, that freedom comes with risk, that even in safe spaces, danger can exist. That visibility does not guarantee safety. The case also highlights the failures of the justice system, the gaps, the limitations. Police knew who the suspect was. They had descriptions, composite sketches, witness identifications. They had survivors who could testify, but they could not prosecute, because the witnesses would not come forward, because the cost of coming forward in 1974 was too high. Lives could be destroyed, careers ended, families torn apart, reputations ruined, and so the witnesses stayed silent, and the killer remained free. It was a choice, a terrible choice, an impossible choice, but it was theirs to make. In 2021, the San Francisco Police Department released updated information. They confirmed they were still investigating, still searching. They confirmed they had DNA evidence, profiles, samples from the crime scenes. They confirmed they believed the suspect was still alive, still living, possibly in the Bay Area. They asked for the public's help, for anyone with information to come forward, for witnesses, even now, decades later, to speak, to break the silence. But no one has. The Doodler is believed to be in his 70s now, if he is still alive. He may be living in San Francisco, or somewhere else, another city, another state. He may have a family, children, grandchildren, a career, a normal life. Or he may be dead, buried, forgotten. No one knows. The case remains open, but is cold, quiet, dormant. The victims are remembered. Gerald Kavanaugh, Jay Stevens, Klaus Christman, Frederick Kappen, Harold Goldberg, Warren Andrews. 6 men, 6 lives, ended by someone they met in a bar. Someone who drew their picture, sketched their face, made them feel seen. Someone who seemed kind, charming, safe, and then, in the dark, became something else. They deserve justice, but justice, in this case, has not come, may never come. The story of the Doodler does not end here, because it has not ended. The case is still open. Investigators are still working, still testing DNA, still searching genealogy databases. There's hope, even now, that the killer will be identified, that a name will be attached to the crimes, that families will have answers, closure, peace. But hope is not certainty, and time is running out. The suspect, if alive, is aging. Memories fade. Evidence degrades. The window is closing. San Francisco has moved on. The Castro thrives. New generations have come, unaware of the fear that gripped the community in the 1970s. The bars are full again. The streets are safe. The fear of the Doodler has faded, become history. A story told in documentaries, in podcasts, in late-night conversations. But the memory remains, in police files, in the minds of those who lived through it, in the families of the victims, who never got closure, who never saw justice, who still wonder, who was he? Why did he do it? Will we ever know? The Doodler sketched faces. He captured moments, expressions, people, and then he erased lives. And his own face, his own name, remains hidden, unknown, a doodle in the margins of history, a killer who vanished into the fog. And the fog, in San Francisco, never fully lifts. It rolls in from the ocean, covers the streets, hides the past, and somewhere in that fog, a name waits, a face waits, an answer waits, and the city, patient, watchful, waits with it.